Hello everyone. So we're about to go on a big undertaking here. We're going to tackle Robert Frost's difficult, but to me, marvelous poem, Directive. It's a later Robert Frost poem when he got more complex, but I think it can still be, we can understand it, we can get a lot out of it, as complex and as difficult as it is. So we're going to just take it piece by piece and do the best we can. Directive. A directive is an order, right? A directive is something he's telling us to do. So this is what Robert Frost is telling us to do. Back out of all this now, too much for us. Okay, back out of all this now, too much for us. All right, we're overwhelmed. I've got papers to write, I've got papers to grade, I've got to clean the bathroom, I've got to get dinner ready, the cat just threw up, it's crazy, stressed out. Back out of all this now, too much for us. Back out of the crazy present moment. Go back to a time made simple by the loss of detail, burned, dissolved, and broken off like graveyard marble sculpture in the weather. Okay, so he's saying when we're stressed out, go back to a simpler time in your mind. Go back to a simpler time, and it's like the reason the time is simpler because we've forgotten the details. He's kind of saying here, no times were ever simple. And there's truth to that, I think. But by the loss of detail, because, you know, we don't really know all the details, and it's the details that stress us out. So stressed out, go back in time, go back in time. There's a house that is no more a house upon a farm that's no more a farm, and in a town that's no more a town. We have a lot of that around here, right? A lot of houses and farms where people lived and died and made love and got eggs and made pies. They're gone, right? And we even have some hamlets, right? Maybe not a legal town, but places that were an entire cosmos. There was a post office, a store, a school, an entire little world that people lived in, and it's not there anymore. Just some few buildings, you wouldn't know it to pass through it. So he's saying, go back to this distance where there is a house, but the house is gone. The road there, if you'll let a guide direct you, who only has at heart you're getting lost. The point is to get lost in the past, right? To get lost in the past. That's what he's telling us to do. May seem as if it should have been a quarry. I'm going to kind of just move through this part because it's a little, I don't even know what he's talking about, and I've tried to figure it out. Great monolithic knees the former town long since gave up pretense of keeping covered. There's a story in a book about it. Besides the wear of iron wagon wheels, the ledges of show lines ruled southeast, northwest, the chisel work of enormous glacier. All right, I know a little bit of what he's talking about. He's going way back to the Ice Age here. So we're going way back. I don't think we need to go that far back, but he's going back, well, I think 14,000 years here in Columbia, Greene County, when the glaciers were still around. That braced his feet against the Arctic pole, you must not mind a certain coolness from him, said to still haunt this side of Panther Mountain. Nor need you mind the serial ordeal of being watched from 40 cellar holes. The past is watching you. A little Whitman-esque here, right? The past is watching you. In a cellar hole, we have a cellar hole on campus, right outside the library windows. There's a little driveway, and then there's a little rise, and there's a cellar hole. A cellar hole is where there used to be a house. The house collapsed. The foundation collapsed. But the hole that someone dug, the cellar hole, is still there. And it's there for a long time. It slowly fills in with leaves and sticks and this and that, but it'll be there for decades. As if by pairs out of 40 firkins. As for the wood's excitement over you that sends light rustle rushes their leaves, charge that to upstart inexperience. Where were they not 20 years ago? All right, so the animals scurrying around the woods, which we have a few here today, you know, we're not talking about them. New made trees shade out apple trees, right? And there are many woods around here where you can still find an old apple tree in the middle of it. And you're like, who planted an apple tree here? Well, somebody planted 100 apple trees. Somehow that one survived, and the woods have grown up where there used to be an apple orchard. There are far, far more trees in Columbia and Greene County now than there were 20 years ago, 50 years ago, and way more than 100 years ago. Way, way, way more. Make yourself up a cheering song. So I have come, you can see a path through the woods behind me. Make yourself up a cheering song of how someone's road home from work this once was. So think about the people who came before you. Think about the people who walked this road before you walked the road, and make yourself up a cheering song about them. So imagine the people who came before you. Someone's road home from work this once was, who may just be ahead of you on foot, or creaking with a buggy load of grain. The height of adventure is the height of country, where two village cultures faded into each other. Both of them are lost, and if you're lost enough to find yourself, pull in your ladder, road behind you, and put up a closed sign to all but me. So if you're lost enough to find yourself, he's telling you to get lost in the past, imagining the people who are in your house right now. You know, if you're in a house watching this and you're not the first owners, think about the previous owners. Think about the Native Americans who were on that piece of land, maybe long before the Europeans were here. First, there's the children's house of make-believe, innocence, youth. Some shattered dishes underneath a pine, the playthings in the playhouse of the children. Weep for what little things could make them glad. Remember how happy like a cookie made you? A cookie still make me happy. But the little things that made you happy in 3rd grade. Then for the house that is no more a house, but only a be-lilac cellar hole. Be-lilac, it has lilac trees there. Lilac trees live almost forever. And you can drive down an old country road and see a lilac 20 feet off the road, and you're like, who planted a lilac there? The people who own the house that used to be there, that's now gone and the barn's gone. Sometimes the only thing left of a farm is a lilac bush. This is a be-lilaced cellar hole, back to our cellar hole, a marker that people used to live there, but it's all gone. Now slowly closing like a dent in dough. You ever punch dough? And you know that dent is going to disappear as the dough rises, but it's so slow you can barely see it. And it's the exact shape of a cellar hole. I wish we were on campus so I could walk you out to the cellar hole and say, look at this, it's like a dent in dough. This was no playhouse, but a house in earnest. Your destination and your destiny is a brook that was the water of the house. Cold as a spring, as yet so near its source, too lofty and original to rage. We know that the valley streams that when aroused will leave their tatters hung on a barb and thorn. So sometimes streams will wash objects away but leave markers of people along the river bank. Pretty quiet here today along the Valatia Kill. Kill is Dutch for stream, by the way. I've kept hidden in the instep arch of an old cedar at the waterside. Huh. That's a cedar tree right here. See the branch by the waterside. I've kept hidden in the instep arch of an old cedar at the waterside a broken drinking goblet like a grail. What's a grail? A grail is the cup that Jesus drank out of at the Last Supper. So the Last Supper, before Jesus was killed on the cross, the cup he drank from is the Holy Grail. Now, that's important. But no one knows where the cup is, right? That is for centuries, that was the great archaeological quest. If someone could find the Holy Grail, and now it's become a metaphor, you know, the Holy Grail of baseball card collectors is a Honus Wagner. The Holy Grail of stamp collectors is a stamp that has a plane on it that was printed upside down, right? The Holy Grail is something you sort of search and search and search for, and it may not even exist. A broken drinking goblet like a grail under a spell so the wrong ones can't find it. so can't get saved as St. Mark says they mustn't. I stole the goblet from the children's playhouse from youth. Here are your waters in your watering place. Drink whole again beyond confusion. Now the Holy Grail is also, the Last Supper was also the first communion. And in Christian churches, communion is a reenactment of the Last Supper. And communion by Christian beliefs is a way we get rid of our sins, right? Communion. Drink, be whole again, get rid of your sins. Then you can go sin again. Okay, so I think we're doing great here. So Robert Frost in this poem is saying, imagine the people who came before you. A day, a week, a month, a year, a decade, 100 years, 1,000 years, 12,000 years. Imagine them here before you. Imagine what their lives were like. I love it. It's giving me the chills. It's giving me the chills here. Imagine when you see that cellar hole, think about the people who made their lives there. And this is good, right? This is like communion, right? It's almost a forgiveness of sins when you think about those people, because they're a lot like you, right? I sometimes, ask my students, do you think people are different, more alike than people in the past, or more different? It's kind of a silly question, but it gets us thinking, right? I think we're more alike. When you read a book from, the 19th century, and you're like, wow, this really applies, wow. It's like, yeah, right? Or you read a 3,000-year-old Greek play, and you're like, oh yeah, pride, that's no good. That'll get you. Yeah, so we haven't changed that much as human beings. Maybe the world around us has, and maybe we've changed in some ways. But ultimately, struggles to survive 100 years ago, 200 years ago, struggles to survive today, it's still a struggle to survive. Dealing with anxiety, dealing with survival, worrying. We've been doing it for 40, 50,000 years, right? 40, 50,000 years. So Frost, his directive to us is to think about the people of the past. Go back to a time made simple by the loss of detail, like graveyard marble sculpture. Go back in your own time. He talks about the children in the playhouse. Think when you were in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, right? And you were so innocent and the world was so simple. Back in our own Eden, right? Back in our own Eden. So that is his directive, and I think it's marvelous. I think one of the best things about studying local history, and most of you know I am the historian of the town of Ghent. The best thing about studying local history is you really understand what used to be right where you go by every day. You find your family members there. What was your great uncle's life like in town if you're in the same spot that he was? What happened to your aunt, right? Where are they? What were their lives like? That is a good thing to use your imagination on. That is what Frost is directing you to do in Directive.